Get ready to live fearlessly free with Heather Bunch.
Have you ever made a decision while you were emotional and later you thought, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Do you notice when stress and fear, it starts to spike? You say and you do things that do not serve your goals or your relationships. Have emotions ever hijacked you? Yeah, anyone besides me? You know what you should do, but you overreact anyways. And then you deal with the fallout. Well, what if I told you your feelings don't get the final vote? You do. Welcome to Live Fearlessly Free. I'm your courageous coach, Heather Bunch, and I am here to help you, Christian women, solopreneurs, go from feeling stuck, not enough, and fearful to taking focused, confident, and courageous action. We are growing ourselves, my friend, so we can grow our businesses and do all that God has called us to do and be all that God's called us to be. Now, today we are talking about emotions. I know you're surprised by that. You know, the ones that show up out of nowhere and then they try to take over. We are going to learn about how you can actually feel your emotions without letting them decide for you, without steering you off course like they tend to do. So today is going to be for you if you're tired of reacting in the moment and then you wish you could take it back. Today is also for you if you desire to stay steady under pressure so you can make clear business decisions, so you can protect your relationships, and you can stop letting emotions derail your momentum. I have got you covered, my friend. And if you're ready to trust yourself again, if you want to hear Father more clearly, and you want to respond in a way that aligns with who you're becoming in your life and in your business, this is your day. Now, emotions, they hit us all. And emotions are from God. I want to make that clear before we get started. God gave us emotions. God has emotions. We're even going to talk about that in a moment. But a lot of times those really strong emotions hit us when we least expect it. Now, right here is when I usually give you a story, some type of illustration. I'm going to tell you, here's a story, and this is how I handled so well this thing that we're learning today. Yeah. No, this week I am going to talk to you about where I screwed up. Actually, I like to be real because you know what? We're all real. We're humans. And when we can be authentic and we can let people know, hey man, I don't have it all together and I don't have it perfect, I think that really allows God to be able to use us in a way, and it helps you relate and go, oh, she knows what I'm feeling. Yes, I do. I actually struggled to find a story, not because, oh, I got it all together. But when I think about emotions and I think about overreacting, this is really one of the areas that God is really needing to work on me on. I can be a very overreactive. I can also do the opposite, and I can stuff my emotions really well. So learning how to respond with my emotions properly and then be able to make good decisions from that's really something I'm working on. In fact, just last week, I had this really great day. I recorded my podcast. Things were going well. I was on schedule. And something happened with one of my kids that they were struggling with something. And boom, I went into, oh my gosh, Heather, you are the worst mom. And the mom guilt and the mom shame just rose up like fierce. And I was really struggling with that. And I was trying to stuff it because I didn't want to make my kid feel like, oh my gosh, you're the problem. I didn't want them to think that in any way, shape, or form. And when you just stuff emotions, though, sometimes they come up in ways you don't expect. So later that night, we're having dinner. Another one of my kids does something that normally would bother me, and I would, correct it and we would deal with it. But I did not handle it well. Let me tell you, the emotion exploded. Because that's what happens a lot of times. If you stuff emotions long enough, they explode out in other ways. And so here I am overreacting to my kid. I mean, causing her to cry. And my husband talks to me afterwards and he's like, "Hun, you would have never reacted like that had you not already been upset about something else." He goes, "You didn't deal with that." Now, he said it more lovingly, and I received that because I knew he was right. And I could even see it as I was reacting, like in that moment, almost, like you're seeing yourself from outside yourself. And I'm like acting in a way where I'm like, why am I doing this? This is not the mom I want to be. I was just having shame about I'm a screw up mom. And then here I am overreacting to my other kid, right? That's what emotions do. They hijack us, and then we make decisions that we regret later. And I repented to my daughter and got it right and apologized and stuff. But you know what? I can't take that back. I mean, I can apologize, but that reaction is now a part of her and a part of her story. And that is not what I want. That is not the mom I want to be. And I'm bringing this story up because, look, we all have stories like that. Reactions that we have that we didn't want to have. Decisions we made in the heat of the moment that we regret later. They hurt our relationships. They make it so that we aren't clear on being able to hear God. And they are reactive. We are reacting in the moment of what we are feeling instead of making a decision based off wisdom, based off who God's created us to be. And so if we are going to think better and live braver, we have got to shift from reactive thinking to feel it, don't follow it thinking. Reactive thinking feels like you're being pulled around by your emotions. It's like you were on a stagecoach with your 6 horses hitched up, except you don't have the reins and your horses just took off at full speed and you're out of control. One moment you're steady and the next you're saying and doing things like you wish you could undo, like I did in that moment with my daughter. When your emotions rise, your brain shifts into survival mode. It goes into this fight, flight, and freeze. Your amygdala steps in, this little almond-shaped part of your brain, and suddenly everything feels urgent. Everything feels extreme. Everything feels like overwhelmed. Oh gosh, I can't do it, right? That is why fear makes you focus on what you might lose instead of what you might gain. Stress makes you short-sighted. Overwhelm pushes you towards quick relief instead of really looking at your long-term growth, your long-term goals. What is it you really want? Reactive thinking is emotion-led thinking. Your emotions, they got the wheel and they're going where they feel like it. And it can derail your dreams, your goals, and relationships faster than almost anything else. But as courageous women, we learn a different way. We learn to feel it, don't follow it. We learn to feel the emotion, but we don't follow the emotion. That is the type of thinking that we are needing to shift to. This mindset doesn't minimize our emotions. God gave us emotions. It doesn't shame our emotions. You know what? I screwed up last week, but I am not going to shame myself over that. I made a mistake and I repented. I asked forgiveness and I'm going to move forward. What we do with this thinking is we simply refuse to be led by the emotion. And then it saves us all the apologizing later, or the I wish I wouldn't have later. So you can feel scared and still move forward. You can feel anxious and you can still choose courage. You can feel overwhelmed and you can still hear Father clearly. That also reminds us of one of our shifts where we shifted from that it could only be or thinking to and both thinking, where we can have the emotion, but we don't have to follow it. Did you know Jesus felt emotion? He did. He was the Son of God, fully God, and yet fully man. He felt human emotion, grief, compassion, righteous anger, anguish. Yet he never reacted from emotion. He did not follow that emotion. He followed what Father would have him do. When we look at Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, he was overwhelmed with sorrow to the extent that he was sweating blood. He prayed in the moment, not my will, but yours be done. I think that is such a beautiful example of you can feel the emotion and yet you don't have to follow it. Jesus felt deeply, but he didn't follow the feeling. He followed Father. Now, Peter, on the other hand, I love Peter. He is like in there and he is 110% in for Jesus. But Peter a lot of times responded very differently than Father did. You know, when he's walking on water, fear hit him and he sees the waves in the wind and he starts to sink. When his anger surged, when people were trying to take Jesus away, he got his sword out and swung it and cut off the ear of the high priest's servant. When pressure rose, he denied Jesus 3 times. That's after he cut off the ear of the servant, by the way. Then guilt and shame hit him. And so much so, he left being a disciple. He went back to fishing. Peter was not rebellious. Peter just let his emotions lead him a lot of times. Jesus shows us emotional courage, and Peter shows us emotional reactivity. So this mindset that we're learning today is going to help us move from being like reactive Peter to steady Jesus. Feel it, but don't follow it. This shift teaches us that emotions are really more of a signal, but they're not the steering wheel. We can acknowledge what we feel without letting it decide our next step. Emotions are real. They are valid, but they are not a good guide. So feel it, don't follow it thinking is where emotional courage begins, my friends. It is a sacred space between what you feel and what you choose. And we're going to go more into that. But this is how courageous women think better and live braver. So how do we shift from reactive thinking to feel it, don't follow it thinking? I'm going to give you 3 courageous practices. Courageous practice number 1, pause and acknowledge the feeling. You know, your first courageous step isn't to shut the emotion down. It's actually to notice it, acknowledge it. Now, most of us go 2 ways with this, as I mentioned earlier. We either stuff our emotion, like the beach ball you're trying to shove under the water. But what happens to the beach ball that you tried to shove under the water? It bounces back up, doesn't it? Or we can let our emotions take the wheel. That's the overreactivity type of response. But feel it, don't follow it thinking it offers us a third path. Instead of resisting the emotion or reacting from it, we pause and we acknowledge it. I'm feeling fear. I'm feeling anger. I'm feeling pressure. I'm feeling embarrassed. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling shame. Whatever that is, naming it starts to activate our prefrontal cortex. Remember, we are in our amygdala when those emotions are rising high and they're strong. Fight, flight, and fear. And so we're going to start that shift to our prefrontal cortex, that part of our brain that can regulate, that can think more clearly, that can make wise decisions. That's what we need to do. Now, Psalms 139:23 reminds us, search me, God, and know my heart. Put me to test and know my anxious thoughts. This is not about fixing emotion. You know, Jesus, remember, he got angry and didn't sin. What it is about, it's about seeing it for what it is. So feel it, don't follow it thinking begins with awareness, because you cannot lead what you refuse to acknowledge. So awareness will break that automatic reaction and opens the door to emotional courage, which leads me to courageous practice number 2. Let the emotion move through your body. Yes, let the emotion move through your body. You see, emotion is really energy in motion. Shows up physically in our body. We feel it a lot of times before we're even consciously aware of it. Your chest can tighten, your stomach could drop, your shoulders get tight, your pulse starts to spike. My cheeks get hot and my ears get hot. Tension locks into your body. And your brain then starts yelling, oh, we got to do something now. Do something to somebody quick. But here is the truth that many of us don't know. Do you know that emotional surge that you're feeling is just a chemical reaction? And it only lasts 90 seconds. Yeah, 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Neuroscientist Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor discovered that when our emotions are firing, our body releases that biochemical wave. It's like a wave. And that wave lasts only a minute and a half. That's it. Minute and a half. 90 seconds. And after that, if you keep spiraling emotionally, it's no longer a body reaction, but it's your thoughts that now are feeding that feeling. So you get to choose if you stay in that emotional loop. So what do courageous women do with that 90 seconds? We ride the wave instead of reacting to it. I like to think of a surfer riding a wave, right? Or we could go total nerd and go to the Fantastic Four with the Silver Surfer that rode the wave. All right. So we let the emotion come up and we let it move through our body and then let it settle. I did this, I do this. This one I'm actually good at because I've had a lot of practice at it. When fear rises up in me and I can feel it in my body and I get the emotional reaction, my cheeks start getting hot. I can start to feel a little foggy. My body, like that, my heart starts to palpitate. Rather than going, oh my God, I'm afraid. It's going to happen again. I'm going to faint. Something's going to happen. Right? What I do is in those 90 seconds, I relax my shoulders, unclench my jaw, I put both feet on the ground, ground myself, and then I breathe. So I inhale slowly. I like to do 4 counts in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for a second and breathe out for 8. Exhale slowly. Breathe out for 8. And then as I'm in that moment, I remind myself, it's okay, Heather. You're just feeling fear. A lot of times I put my hand on my heart, getting in touch with my vagus nerve that controls head, heart, and gut. We did a whole podcast series on that. But I allow that chemical surge to just flow out of my body. I am allowed to feel this, and I don't have to follow it. I can feel fear and I don't have to faint, right? I can feel overwhelmed and I don't have to panic. In quietness and trust is your strength. Isaiah reminds us of that in chapter 30, verse 15. Quietness creates strength. Stillness restores that clarity and that calmness. So when you let the emotion move through your body and just let it flow on out without reacting, that is when you make that full shift from your amygdala to your prefrontal cortex. That is when you have allowed that wave of chemical reaction that only lasts 90 seconds to release from your body. Now, your brain's back online and you can start to make better decisions because your brain is chilled out. And that allows us to move to practice number 3. Courageous practice number 3. Choose your response. So once the emotional wave settles, you're standing at a crossroads, my friend. You can react from the feeling, like I did last Monday, and overreacted and responded in a way that I regret. Or you can respond from your calling. You can make a better decision. You do not have to follow the feeling. This is where courageous women make the shift from reactive thinking to feel it and don't follow it thinking. This is the moment that Viktor Frankl, a psychologist and a Holocaust survivor, talked about in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. He calls it the pause. Now, this tiny pause is between the stimulus and the response. And this is where freedom lives, is what he talks about. Because Viktor went through the entire Holocaust. And when he was being tormented, he would, in that pause, in that stimulus of this emotional response, when most people would have given up on life, he thought of all the things that he's done and will do when this is over. He made a different response in that moment. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not in a moment that's so bad as what he went through. And if he could go through that and choose a different response, how much more can we, who are empowered by Jesus Christ himself, choose a different response? Now, I'm not saying this to condemn you. I've just told you, like, this is my problem, right? I'm the problem, it's me. But that's what I have to remind myself. That's what you have to remind yourself. That pause is where feel it, don't follow it thinking becomes real. This is where the rubber meets the road. In that moment, ask yourself a question. What do I do with this information? You could ask yourself, what choice aligns with who I want to be? You know, in that moment with my kids, that was not the mom I wanted to be. And if I would have taken that moment and paused and thought, I don't want to be the mom in this moment, you know, I could have stopped it in that moment and gotten out of that emotional loop instead of having to deal with it on the back end. Now, thank God we can deal with it on the back end. But how much better had I made the choice before I responded? We can ask questions like, what step honors Father and the future that I'm building? In this, is this decision that I'm about to make, is that coming from fear or from faith? See, when you ask yourself great questions, your mind automatically goes to work to find great answers. So ask yourself a question in that pause between the stimulus and the response. Proverbs 19:2. One who hurries his footsteps errs. That basically means when we rush, we make mistakes. And that is exactly what happens when we react from emotion instead of from calmness. Calmness in Christ. So this practicing this pause, empowers you so that now, instead of sending some crazy text message of how you're feeling in the moment, you can send that text message after you calm down. You can make the business decision from spiritual and mental clarity instead of panic mode. You can set boundaries without all the emotional messiness that needs to go with it. You can hold your tongue instead of saying something you're going to regret later. You can keep moving toward your dream instead of sabotaging your progress. How many times I'm in the process of losing a little extra poundage that I'd added on because I wasn't tracking my food. But let me tell you, if I allow my emotions to make my food choices, what am I going to eat? I'm eating the candy. I'm eating the comfort food. I am not going to be taking the protein shake. I cannot allow my emotions to make my choices. I can feel the emotion. You know what? I'd rather have the comfort food than mac and cheese. But I could still choose a different response. I don't feel like posting today or doing the podcasts, right? But I could record the podcast anyways. I can put the video out there anyways. I can make the post anyways. I can make the phone calls. We can make a different choice. We can feel it. We acknowledge it. We allow that 90 seconds to go and do their thing and ride the wave and let it release from our body. But then we can make a different choice. This, my friend, is how courageous women think better and live braver. By choosing courage, by choosing clarity, instead of reacting to our emotions. And again, no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. If you are like me, and sometimes you're on the struggle bus with this one, it's okay. I love God because we get a second chance, and a third chance, and a fourth chance. And you know what? When you do this, you're going to run into issues, and maybe you'll do it right sometimes, and maybe you won't. On other occasions, that's okay. Pick ourselves back up, we dust ourselves back off, we ask forgiveness, and we keep moving forward. Quick recap. This is the mind shift we are making today. We are going from reactive thinking that pulls us into that quick emotional decisions and overreactivity into feel it, don't follow it thinking. This helps us pause, it helps us process, and it helps us choose a better path. The one where we are becoming all God has called us to be. And we can do all God's called us to do. And as we walk through these three courageous practices, this is going to help you in real time, in real life. Courageous practice number 1. Pause and acknowledge the feeling. Slow down long enough to actually name it. What is happening inside you? How are you actually feeling it? And do it without judgment and without stuffing it. Awareness is the key. It gives you clarity so that later you can choose your response instead of getting swept away by the emotion. Courageous practice number 2. Let the emotion move through your body. Remember, that emotional chemical reaction is just a wave that lasts only 90 seconds. Ride the wave, and let it flow out your body. Your brain's going to chill out, your body's going to calm, and your clarity's going to return. And that will allow you to do courageous practice number 3, choose your response. Once that wave settles, you're going to step into that Viktor Frankl pause, that space where freedom lives. That space where you get to choose your response, not based on the stimuli, not based on what just happened to you, not based on the circumstances, not based on how you're feeling, but you're making a decision based on what aligns with your calling, your character, and the future that God is building in you, instead of what you're feeling in the moment. As courageous women, we don't ignore our emotions. Emotions can be so beautiful. It allows us to experience life in a greater way. But not when they're those 6 horses on a stagecoach running away with you, making decisions for you that are not in alignment with who you want to be. So we don't have to ignore our emotions, but we don't have to obey them either. We can feel them, and then we can choose the next step with clarity and courage. All right, let's talk courageous action. We're going to do the 90-second reset. So this week, I want you to practice this one simple rhythm anytime your emotions start, going off the deep end. All right? Number 1, notice it. Pause long enough to name your feeling. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling defensive. I'm feeling discouraged. Whatever you're feeling in that moment, name it. And naming it also helps you keep from getting swept away by it. Okay? Now, number 2, ride the 90-second wave. Let that emotional reaction move through your body and out your body. And you're going to do that by breathing. Unclench the jaw. Put your feet on the ground. You could put your hand on your heart if you want. Tell yourself, I can feel this, but I don't have to follow it. Now, give your brain those 90 seconds to chill out. Then number 3, choose your response. Once that wave settles, jump into that tiny little Viktor Frankl pause that he talks about and ask, what response lines up with who I want to be? What response lines up with who I want to be? Then take that step. The one that is the aligned one, not the emotional one. Small shifts that you do on a consistent basis are going to rewire your mind. They're going to strengthen your emotional resilience. They are going to help you think better so you can live braver, one decision at a time. Now, if this episode has made you think of somebody, maybe someone comes to mind, a friend, a fellow business owner, a sister, someone who tends to react fast and, regret it later, would you mind sharing this episode with her? You don't have to tell her that, hey, you're the overreactive one, by the way. But would you mind sharing it with her? It might be the very reason that helps her to pause, to breathe, to choose differently, to live a different life, a life made out of decision and obedience, of following Father instead of following her emotion and the overwhelm and the reaction. So hit the share button, my friend. Help make a difference in someone's life. Now, next time we are wrapping up this series, Think Better, Live Braver. We are going to be talking about what it looks like to stay faithful when the journey takes longer than expected. Woo! Anyone besides me think, dang, I thought this would go faster. Now, if you have ever wondered, am I doing something wrong, or do I just need to stay on course a little longer? This conversation is going to be for you. So hang tight, my friend, and join us next week. You have got this, and Father has got you. I just want to thank you so much. Thank you a bunch for listening or for watching. And until next time, I want you to think better and live braver.